was brilliant, and I can never remember her name. Jackie. I remember Jackie, and she said to me, she said, because I must have said something to somebody earlier on in the day that I was feeling the way I was, and Jackie came in and she pulled the chair up in front of the bed, and it wasn't like she was bossing me, she was trying to put through to me, look, Pat, things will get better. And at that time, I think I was starting to accept what I was. And these different care workers, and Elaine and Dr. Ayube and everybody else, were giving me tools to deal with what was going on and to make life better. And I think from then I started getting curious.
What do you mean by curious?
Curious of what life could be. Was what everybody's saying to me the truth?
Planted a seed almost.
Yeah, planted a seed and let it grow, and that life could be different. And I had started, because every day, I remember saying to somebody one day, or I wrote it down or something, every day I live to die tomorrow. And now it's every day I live to live tomorrow. It just changed. So I wouldn't say dramatically, because all these little pieces were starting to fall into place.
So it wasn't like you suddenly went from feeling like I want to die to feeling like I want to live.
Oh no, it didn't. Because it took time. And I was, I suppose, given the tools, and I was being curious as well.
And you had quite a time on the ward, quite a long time on the ward, but you didn't feel like you were ready to be able to go home.
No, I had a fear of home. I was never afraid of anybody else. I was always afraid of me.
And the voices? And Kevin's voice?
And Kevin, because he had such a control over me. Like, because going through life, if you were going to do something, you always had this thing in your head that he was downgrading you, and oh look, nobody wants you. And that's the way, because I had lived it like that for so long, I believed everything he was saying.
And I remember when we used to talk and I used to ask you about Kevin's voice, and he would ridicule you and tell you off for talking to me. And I always thought it took immense courage to be able to tell me stuff when inside your head you were just getting the most awful abuse for talking.
Yeah, it was like everything. If growing up, that if I ever thought about telling anybody, this voice is going, look, who's going to believe you? Look, what are you? Who are you? And you're stupid, and a lot of other words, but I can't use them. But yeah, he just had that so much control over my life that I had to learn how to break the cycle of his control.
And so, because you and the professionals agreed that although things were getting better, you weren't ready to go straight home. You went to a place called St. Kath's, which is it's a sort of step-down rehab facility.
Yeah, if I just go back to Northgate, part of OT was you could go and do cooking or baking with Ulla. And I said, one day I'll go and have a go. But then every week I wanted to cook. I look forward to my time with Ulla. And I went to St. Kath's then, and I suppose being in a new place, it took me time to get used to what was the surroundings I was in. But St. Kath's gave me, not that the war didn't give me enough, it's St. Kath's gave me back something that I had forgotten about.
And what was that?
Cooking.
And
cooking a meal, maybe once a week or whatever. That helped me. But when I went to St. Kath's, I started, not at first when I went there, I offered to cook the meal. And I just got into it then, and I was cooking every day. And I remember Christmas was coming up, and I was so afraid of Christmas. I hadn't got my kids around me, I had no family around me.
They were all in Ireland.
They were
They'd
all in
gone back to
Ireland,
Ireland.
and I was by myself. And it was the first time that, I suppose, because I sat down with Rachel, and we'd done the menus for Christmas, and I went and done the shopping with Rachel, and it gave me something gave me something to look forward to at Christmas. To look forward to cooking a meal, cooking breakfast, it was I had control over something.
And so at St Cath's, people stay there, but they share the cooking. It's not done by staff. The service users will do it with staff.
I think I took over. I think I took over the cooking. But that gave me something every day. It might be something small, or it might be something that you do every day, but that's gave me something back. That gave me something to look forward to.
I remember how excited you were when I carried on coming to see you at St Cath's, and you were making the Christmas cakes.
That's right. Well,
and absolute pride.
We came up with this because of where we were, and I suppose alcohol couldn't have been myself and.
Because you'd used alcohol in the past to try and manage the voices.
And I suppose that there was other people maybe in St Cath's too that couldn't have. So myself and Yvonne come up with these two ideas, that we'd make one with cold tea and we'd make the other one with fruit juice to see what way they'd work out.
And how did they work out?
They came out very well. Everybody ate them and enjoyed them anyway. But it's stuff like that. It was, although the ward had got me on my medication and got me feeling that bit better, it's when I went to St Cath's that I got life back.
There's something interesting that when we spoke as well, I think just that might be interesting was, we were talking earlier about when you worked, and you worked very hard, you're successful, I think pillar of the community sort of thing, and you talked about the fact that you would help everybody. If anybody had a problem, you'd help them. If their business was struggling, you'd talk to the bank for them, you'd help. So you were helping a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now you're helping in a different way. Does it feel different?
Yeah, but it's different now because I'm not doing it to mask what's going on. I'm not trying to show people that, oh, look, I'm this great person, I'll go and talk to this person or that person for you.
So it's not a way of avoiding.
No, I'm not avoiding anymore. I'm actually dealing with it. I'm dealing with what's going on.
And I think it's important to that part about when you left the wards, you weren't 100%, you weren't fully better, because I think people have an idea sometimes that acute wards are the places where you get better, and I think they're the places sometimes where that hopefully starts. Yeah,
I think it starts on the ward.
But it sounds like it was the stuff outside of the ward.
Yeah, I think we all have something inside us that we're good at, and I think if true mental illness, if you don't get it on the ward, yeah, fair enough, you get the medication and you get people to talk to, and it's the start of it. But it's going into a place like St Cath's that can tap into what you're good at. And if you find something that you're good at, I suppose it's giving you back your life. And
so what are you doing now? What is life like now? Because you're not in St Cath's anymore.
No, I'm not. I'm not in St Cath's anymore. I left St Cath's in January. I'm back with my partner. Things are going good. But every Tuesday, I volunteer in a place called the Bridge Centre, where I cook for anything between 50 and 80 people. Every Tuesday, a 3-course meal.
So they're vulnerable people, yeah.
For the unwaged people. And I don't stress about it. That's something that I've learned, that I don't stress. I don't stress anymore. And cooking for 80 people can be stressful at times, but like, if it's 5 minutes late, what's the problem? Do you know what I mean? So I'm more relaxed in my life. And what about your link with St Cath's? I used to go up to St Cath's every Sunday and cook, but with things and that, I haven't been going. But every Tuesday when I finish cooking in the Bridge Centre, I'll actually call into St Cath's and see Rachel, sit down and say, well, look, yeah, I'm doing well. But I also see, I go to somewhere in Norwich called Siva, where I first went when I first came to Yarmouth. And I see him once a month. I used to see him every week, but now I'm gone to once a month.
So it's a counsellor that specialises in working with people who've had a sexual abuse trauma.
And I think it's good that he sees from where he seen me months and months ago to where I am now and what I am now. That I'm a stronger person.
Because outwardly, people might look at your life and think you used to be a man that had lots of money, that had the big house, that was doing, and you know.
It's funny you say that. I remember when I was at peak times in Ireland, I used to work for a company, but I also had my own business going at the same time. And I remember I used to always, anytime I get cash, I'd go up and I'd put it in, wrap it in socks and put it in a drawer. And I remember Michelle, it didn't matter how much money I had, it still wasn't enough. I thought money was going to cure me, but it was never. Money was never. And I remember Michelle going up, and she rang me and where the company I was working. She says, "Where did all this money come from?" And I said, "What money?" And she said, "The money that's in your socks." I said, "What are you doing with my socks?" And she said, "I went up to clear it out or sort out your socks." I said, "Well, you didn't have to go near my socks." I said, "You could have done your own." But it was the fact that she knew that I had all this money stashed away. That somebody knew what I was doing. It was
trying to fill a hole.
Yeah, it was trying to fill. I felt that, oh, she knows this now. Will she find out the rest of the stuff? And
so you couldn't let anyone know a little bit of your pain in case they uncovered it.
Yeah, I couldn't let anybody see me for what I was.
And now?
Now I'm open and honest with everybody. I was abused when I was a child. I've done stupid things in my life. I don't care who finds out.
And so even though now you haven't got a sock drawer full of rolled up money, and
to be honest
life
with you,
feels
money
richer?
I couldn't give a damn if I had £5 or £500 in my pocket. Money is not going to make me that person that can conquer everything. I suppose if you have money, you're showing success. But I had money to show that I was successful, but I was successful for the wrong reasons. I wasn't.
And what is success for you now, or what is recovery for you now? Because
every day is recovery. Getting up every morning, and I suppose Tuesdays are a big thing to me. Like on a Monday night, because they bought me chef whites, I'll iron my chef whites and get them ready for the next morning. And I'll think about what we're cooking that day, that following day, and I'll have a plan set up that I'll have the dinner done by 12:30, and sometimes I'm standing around from 11:30 on to 12:30 because the dinner is done, and it's ready to go. And
does recovery for you mean that all the voices have gone, that all the depressive symptoms have gone?
No, because you can't forget about I feel if I got complacent and said, "Oh yeah, look, I'm better," and it's not like that. It's not one bit like that, because you'll still have. It's like suicide was a safety net for me. Although I don't have it more that prevalent in my life at the minute, I still know where I've been and where I've come from. And I can't get complacent and say, "Well, look, this is never going to happen to me again." Because I do get down days. I do get days where I'm down. But I've been given the tools and the courage and the honesty to deal with it.
So
and to get on.
Living well
it's living well with the illness.
I haven't got any more questions to ask other people might, but I would just like to say publicly that it was an absolute honour to work with you. You're a very brave man. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say that Rachel and Yvonne, Elaine and everybody else that played a part in my recovery, thank you very much for giving me back my life.
I think, thank you from, I think I'm speaking for everybody, I say thank you to both of you for sharing that. We spoke really briefly when we were talking about planning this. I don't know if other people find it true, but there's recently, when there were the riots in London a couple of years ago, and then more recently the awful murder of the soldier, one of the people I found wrote really honestly about it and really got it right was Russell Brand, of all sort of people. And I find that we were talking about, I don't know how to describe it, but there is a kind of wisdom and an insight that people have who have been face to face with the darkest side of themselves, not necessarily overcome it, but faced it and come back. And it's not necessarily more valuable than anybody else's wisdom or better, but it's just a very unique sort of insight into life and a wisdom that people have. And I find that when I hear Patrick speak. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? What we're going to do, Malcolm, I'll start with you, and then we've got people behind us, so we can pass it back.
Was it classed as manic depression?
Patrick didn't have manic depression.
No.
No, it wasn't manic depression I had. I tell you, I lived in a madness. It was just a pure madness. My whole life was racing. I'd never get time for me to understand what was going on. It was just a pure madness. It was just a rush. And that was what brought me down, was the madness that I lived in at that time.
Yeah, I don't think outwardly people would have known necessarily
nobody
how
would have
much
known.
his thoughts.
Because I would have been sitting there watching television and I could have been thinking about going up and finding a tree and hanging myself, but nobody knew that I was thinking that way. Only me.
Only you?
Yeah.
Hi. How did you not let alcohol take over? Because obviously you kind of meant like...
Well, everything had its way. Everything work. I used to work so many hours every day.
Yeah.
And then gambling, I done gambling.
Yeah.
And alcohol, I suppose.
Did it ever take
stopped
over?
me
That's
from
what...
working, because I used to, if I drank, I'd have a hangover for 4 days.
Yeah.
And it stopped me from working. So I just said,
see.
no, well,
Okay,
alcohol
yeah,
is
yeah.
not for me.
So it didn't really take over your life?
No, it didn't take over my life. It was hiding.
Yeah.
It was helping me deal with what was going on. It never
I
really
see.
took over my
Okay.
life.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your speech as well.
There was interesting, one of the notes I made down there when we were talking about you abused gambling and alcohol. There were lots of abuses that you could blame for mistakes that you made.
Oh, yeah.
But you had eventually the abuse that you actually needed to confront wasn't either of those really. I mean,
Well,
they
that's
had to
it,
be dealt
yeah.
with, but it was the
It's
abuse
like
you suffered.
It's like if I go to a wedding or anything like that, I can have a drink. I can have a drink now and enjoy it. It's like Grand National or Cheltenham, whatever. I can have a bet at Cheltenham and it doesn't take over my life because I'm doing it for a total different reason now.